So episode 2, I put a question out on the dementia Reddit thread.
Okay.
And that question was, what are your biggest concerns either for yourself or a loved one?
Okay.
You understand a bit more what Reddit is now?
No.
Okay. And we got 6 comments back.
Okay.
So as we have 6, let's try and keep it as concise advice. I'll send them the link and I'll transcribe your answer.
You should put a little beat behind that. Concise.
Good advice. Because you're the expert, I'm just here as a...
I think expert's a bit of a...
presenter.
Anyway, go on.
Comment 1.
Yeah.
Again, this is on a dementia thread.
Yes, I understand that. I just don't understand Reddit.
Mum died of late-stage dementia in July 22.
Oh.
Dad was much older than she and died in 1991. However, Dad never had dementia. His was cancer of esophagus, and he had his mentality until the end.
Intact, yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Thinking of a 50-50 chance of having dementia myself.
Okay.
Even though my health has mimicked Dad's closer than Mum's, my biggest fear is that I get dementia and am unable to end my life before I get to where I watched my mum get to in hers. Mm-hmm. Dementia is a cruel disease that treats the family different than physical disease does. I'm aware that the brain is physical. That's what it says in brackets. Mm-hmm. I have talked openly with my children and have explained to them my wish, which I'm assuming it means about killing oneself, should I get dementia, and they're supportive for now. I don't mean to be so grim here, but I'm 100% honest of my greatest fear. So that's someone's greatest fear. Can you offer any solid advice based on that?
Well, the quickest advice would do anything that could prevent it in any way, shape or form. So it seems like keeping the brain active, don't let that activity stop. So often you see at the onset of dementia, Alzheimer's, when people stop work, there's actually been a rise in much younger people having Alzheimer's, dementia, some version of cognitive...
Symptoms, cognitive decline.
Yeah, because there's been a generation, or whenever that generation was, of really successful businessmen. It's stereotypical, but certainly in our company, that's been a thing. And they've retired early because they've made lots of money, and so then they just play golf and watch the telly.
Vegetate. Yes,
brain activity goes from this immense, busy... sparkly dream catcher to then beige curtains, and in comes the problem. So keep brain active. There's lots of little games you can play. There's simple tasks, making sure you've got something where you've got to, it's puzzles like the Sudokus and crosswords, things like that are really good things like that. There are other parts of your physical health that is the strong scientific evidence to state links to dementia, such as flossing your teeth.
Oh, I wasn't thinking that, but I think.
Yeah, but there is, because there's sort of set correlations between how things build and transfer, and there isn't time. This is a short thing, but there's certain things which certainly can be done in way of prevention. The other thing is making sure that family are really, really clued up to the signs and the symptoms, because obviously you might well feel yourself that you'll be able to recognise when you start with dementia. 1, some people can. 2, people often fear that that's what's happening, and it becomes a paranoid thing, not a factual thing. So close family members, friends, get them educated in what to spot in way of actual signs and symptoms. Seek support early, because lots of the medications that are out on the market, well, certainly 2 of them, which I won't mention either for obvious reasons, but one of them specifically sort of stops the progression in its tracks. So the earlier it started, the absolute better.
Okay.
So there are things that can be done.
On the hereditary side, 50-50 chance is a little bit. Mum had it, Dad didn't have it. It's a little bit.
There's lots of conflicting science, whether it's hereditary or it's just shit happens. So from that point of view, I think it's always very difficult trying to mark, well, Mum has this or had this, Dad had this or has this, so I'm going to get one or the other.
Yeah, there's a fear at the forefront, having lived through that experience of a parent, which is understandable.
You don't want to watch that and think, I'm next, kind of thing. But the hereditary thing wouldn't be one of my concerns.
No. I remember the first time I sat with a gentleman with dementia, I couldn't believe it. I'd never seen anything like it.
It's brutal.
Grandparents, they forget things. I forget everything anyway, but I'm not too worried about Alzheimer's and dementia for now. But just to actually watch somebody forget who you are within the space of 5 minutes is
It's brutal.
It's the first time is unbelievable. Unable to end my life before I get to where I watched my mum get to in hers. I mean, I think a lot of people, you speak to a lot of people who of a certain age, looking down the barrel of older age, most people say, just shoot me, don't put me in a home.
Well, that's what everybody says, but I'm not quite sure how many people actually really want that.
Yeah.
And obviously the issue is here in this country, that's not an option that is available to us. So are you wanting me to debate that?
No.
No, all right, okay. Only because from my experience, I can understand completely why people would want to be able to take control on that aspect of their life in certain circumstances. And my personal opinion is people should be able to decide what they do with themselves. Yeah. But it is what it is. And the thing about death, however that comes, is yes, it's important to oneself to have it as you want, but it's about the people around you as well. So
like I say, children are supportive for now, but
it's the end of somebody's life. It's an insanely sizable milestone in your children's, your friends, your partners. So, but having said that, to each their own.
Yeah, but physical health, keeping your mind active, because obviously dementia is not a blanket term, but under the umbrella there's Lewy body dementia, Korsakoff's,
there's all sorts.
Vascular dementia, so obviously your cardiovascular health, your heart health, and the capillaries in the brain.
There's lots you can potentially do to keep yourself as physically healthy as possible to statistically, scientifically prevent the onset of dementia, Alzheimer's, any other umbrella term. Simple things as say flossing your teeth, making sure you're physically active, keep that brain active. Yeah. Not overworked. You're not got to be able to work out physics questions and stuff. I mean, people probably can. My life, I'd be shot because I couldn't. But something regular to keep that brain in a pattern of functionality.
Okay, I'm going to cut you off.
Go for it.
I think you've answered comment 1.
Or can we just say that was really brave?
Yeah. To
put that on there. Well done, whoever that is.
I didn't write the name, but it'll be on there.
Well done.
Comment 2. My 84-year-old father is moderate to severe stage, but physically fit, although somewhat slow. I would be
normally
84.
That happens. It's brain or body.
And in hard denial. Is that denial because you're not sure, like keep forgetting and unaware, or?
No, that's probably because of the phase where the person's at. We can get to that.
Okay. He also takes offence to anyone questioning his independence / ability to take care of himself / ability and right to drive. Currently, my biggest concern is finding his spare set of keys and selling his car as he keeps secretly driving it. He's unlicensed, and scraping / bumping the side of it. He has spent £30,000 in the last year on getting his scrapes fixed before we found out what he was doing. My other concern, it could be dollars, but either way, it's a hell of a chunk. My other concern is resentment of each other within the family. We are a close family, brother, father, and I. Mum died suddenly in 2019, sadly. And this is really hard on all of us. So I'm assuming this is guidance surrounding dealing with these behaviours.
Yeah, okay. So my hands-on experience, should we say, would be to do every measure you can to make sure that person is safe, and obviously removing that car would be a good one. So I'm going to jump to the middle.
Unlicensed, so someone's already taken the measure.
It's not just about that person, obviously it's about the harm it could cause to other people, which I appreciate this person understands completely. The one tack that, obviously we can't mention this person by name, but you know who I'll be talking about. There was a huge issue with driving with that particular individual, and what we did was we did get the keys, and we actually put the car in the garage where it normally would be serviced. So every time the person wanted the car, I was like, it's still in the garage, still in the garage. The garage were on board because obviously they were getting umpteen phone calls a day from this person demanding when the car would be ready. And there was that one time where the person managed to get to the garage, should we say, and demanded the car be collected and driven home. And again, the mechanics were on side and said, well, we can't, it's, the battery's out, it's still not ready. And they had removed the battery. So it depends on what relationships you've got with people close by. But my point of that example is if you can get links with people who are familiar and in sort of pattern of life to that person, so the usual mechanic, the usual garage, get the car stored there for a little bit, get the battery taken out of it, and then so it actually becomes a bit of a reality, but that car's out of the way. Things like that are really, really helpful. There's been other people who we've dealt with who are Johnny, your grandson's got it now. He's borrowing it this week. He's back from university. He did say that was all right. So things where...
Oh, little Johnny.
But things where that brain might be like, rather than being heightened and aggressive and challenged, be like, oh, okay, that sounds like something I would do. Maybe I did that. So it's about trying to calm these reactions down.
Yeah, and the confusion in terms of, okay,
maybe.
Yeah,
maybe I did that. We've even gone as far as leaving a voicemail on the landline phone. Hi, Grandad, thanks so much for the car, etc., etc., etc. And then look, he said he called you yesterday, and then the person listens to the voicemail like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Instant relief.
Okay.
The denial part's the same problem though. That will be, in my opinion, because that person won't be at the severe stage, and that's probably bad news to this family member. This is probably actually fairly early to middle stage of advancement, because there is that really unpleasant loop for everybody. It's torturous where the person suffering the dementia actually is very aware something's not right, but they can't understand what's not right. So the brain itself is picking up on a problem. So denial, yes, definitely, because there is some awareness there, but some of that denial will actually be genuine confusion. And obviously it's dementia confusion, but it's the brain not agreeing with itself. It's like, well, that's not right. But
I think the denial kind of makes... See, when I see denial, it's more of we're having a conscious conversation. Yeah. But I suppose, but even in a late stage, you'd expect denial because they don't understand.
Yeah, which loops... Well, it doesn't loop back. It brings me to my point. My advice for this would be collude all the way to the end of the road and back. Just go along with it. Get things out of the way, the car, the keys... Plant it in the garage. Don't even leave the
spare set in there.
Absolutely not. No, spare set has to go. It's being lent to a family member, friend, grandson. It's in the garage. Whatever scenario that person can relate to, get it gone, and then you just have to roll with the rest of it. There really is no point saying, Dad, you can no longer drive the car. You're going to kill somebody, because that's only going to cause an argument. That person will forget. And so there's other ways and means. All that's going to do is get the family upset. And
it's just causing resentment of each other. I'm assuming the brother and
will. Yeah. Because the relationships, because for these family members, Dad's not who they knew Dad was. Mum's already gone.
3 blokes.
It's a very hard relationship. And so for it to not be a fight, you simply have to collude. And obviously this person hasn't watched the first video. Collusion is going on with that person's reality.
Yeah.
Tweaking it slightly. Shift the car.
Okay. Done?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Number 2, done. Comment 3. I was my dad's care partner. He had a very rare and aggressive form of cardiovascular dementia. From diagnosis to death, we had about 18 months together. He died in May at the age of 75, and I'm concerned I'll never be able to remember him in his pre-dementia days. My mum has mid-stage Alzheimer's, and I worry that I won't have the stamina or capacity to be her care partner too in her last days.
First part of that question, it's a corny answer, but it's a time issue. That the memories of that last part of the experience will dampen down at some point. But the best way to overcome that is jump back, is literally it's autopilots, find memories, experiences, times, places that were way, way, way before.
Memories come in all sorts, so don't
all sorts.
The things you remember where you're just like having a Madeline moment or a coffee or being in a certain place.
Yeah, definitely. But our brain also often chooses which ones to block and which ones to access, and it for some reason chooses the ones that causes most distress a lot of the time. So the brain will pick up on that, yes, but this was awful and this was so traumatic, and that time that he was in this mess, and that time I could have done better, and that time I shouted and I shouldn't.
It's a negativity bias.
Yeah, so the advice would be is dump that. You just literally have to think, I'm going to swap that with a positive memory. I'm going to swap that with a positive memory.
Go through photos.
Yeah, places, favourite meals that you used to cook together, activities you used to do together. They're likely right. Being able to do that for 2 parents, you don't see many people that are able to do that, and it's not a criticism. It's emotionally exhausting, and it's recognising genuinely if that's going to be an issue, finding some other support network that could
or professional services, depending on where you are and what services are available in your country, area, region, etc.
Yeah, some care services either regularly, intermittently, for some respite, companionship, or the personal care for mum. Does it say what sex this person is? Whether they're male or female?
Doesn't say. I'm going to guess female.
Okay, well, often if it was going to say if it was a son, they can find obviously personal care and personal issues with mum a lot harder than a son would. So just deciding realistically and early on to possibly get some support already in there would be my advice. That you can get on with you as well. You don't have to be non-involved altogether, because that brings regret too sometimes. Yeah. But well done, because that's hard work. Yeah. Really hard work.
Sign off comment 3?
Yes.
4. Stop reading it before.
I'm not actually. I've not got my glasses on. I can't see much of it.
It's upside down and tiny.
And it's upside down, yeah.
Well-meaning people interfering in my mum's life. So this is their biggest concern.
Okay.
She had someone she isn't really friends with insist that she gets a vaccine. Or a vaccine. Mm-hmm. The woman made an appointment, picked her up and made sure it happened.
What?
I'm really reading what's there. The same woman was just going through mum's private papers saying she was helping clean up. The woman is over 75, never fully recovered from brain surgery and has been using my mum as a personal project.
Shite.
It's almost as though she doesn't have her own problems. I'm worried she'll bring mum to the hospital for something. Mum will sign her medical power of attorney and this woman will make medical decisions instead of calling the family. I'm also scared the usual things, but mostly of strangers taking advantage and creating problems or upsetting/confusing mum.
Yeah, 100% valid. That woman shouldn't be doing any of those things. The first thing to actually prevent her from doing it is get power of attorney for health themselves.
Yourself.
Somebody else in the family.
Same mum. Yeah.
It would be advisory to also call GP, equivalent of social services, just to say there's this woman on the radar.
Safeguarding, basically.
Yeah, she's actually not a member of the family. The general family don't consent to this woman's involvement, X, Y, and Z. Just because people do things like that and worse. And if they've got a name marked on the medical records, on the social service records, even if mum hasn't already got social service records, it will be logged against her name, date of birth. Then it physically prevents that woman from actually taking any control. So ASAP, get her listed in places where it's important.
And a social worker, if...
Definitely. Depending, obviously we don't know who this person is, but however you can access your general social support services, it's just ring and you just say, I have this issue, my mum's not open to services, but I need to make sure this is noted somewhere. The GP are usually really, really good and supportive with things like that as well. Mm-hmm. And then get power of attorney for health, 100%.
Yeah, but if mum has diminished capacity, how easy is it to get a power of attorney, given that she can't sign to say...
It depends on...
I'm assuming.
Yeah, it definitely happens. And it also depends where these people are, because it differs between countries. So if it was here, there is a process, as with everything with our legal services. It takes a fucking decade. Not literally, but it takes a long time. But you can bring a best interest need for POA here, which you need social services to support you to do. Yeah. So that'll be open up to social services. One thing I would definitely do is get rid of anything that is valuable. And I don't mean financially valuable, I mean valuable in way of information, private information, access to other parts.
Something that somebody could
get
manipulate.
It out of that property, or get it in a part of that property which is hard to access. I'm not saying go and lynch all your mum's stuff. I just mean move things out the way that should not be there.
What is mail redirect? There's call minders on the phone to block unwanted callers.
There's like the canary systems here, which alarm when a door, not in the house, it alarms to an app. So kids, partners can see who's come in the house and why have they come in the house. And they're actually really, really good for catching people like this out, because something might go missing one afternoon, or mum goes for whatever, and it's like, well, the only person that came to the door was this crazy lady at this time. And that can be used. If they get really concerned that she's taking advantage of a vulnerable adult, it again depends on how you regulate it, but that could even be raised to CQC, Care Quality Commission. You could jump everybody else and say this is just not acceptable. Yeah. My advice would be gut instinct. If you don't feel like it's right, always report it, and then you can always apologise afterwards. Mum's more important.
I agree.
Would be my advice, especially if she's vulnerable.
Yeah, and then just keep an eye, because You can't stop everything. I mean, there was a local shop taking advantage of somebody that one time, and they were just allowing them to go in and buy and buy and buy.
The same thing every single day when you live independently at home.
25 packs of butter.
But we have had a similar incident with this.
Yeah.
And, well, it's very similar. And it's actually incredibly easy to shut down. It's just having the confidence to take that first step, because you don't want to tread on mum's toes. You don't want to upset the fact that maybe she enjoys this person's company, but there's other people's company.
And get that medical and financial power of attorney. 100%.
Medical's almost more important than financial, in my opinion. But yeah.
Taking that. Comment 5. My husband is in early stages but can't be left alone even for short periods of time. More because he is unsteady on his feet. I'm worried about how his behaviours are going to affect our kids. So I'm assuming they still have relatively young children.
Does he say how old he is?
No.
Okay.
I'm worried about how his behaviour... Oh, bugger, I've already read that bit. He is already not the man they know. He is very unpredictable. Some days he's okay. Other days he will completely ignore them, sleep all day, and or just do very random things like try and fix something that has been broken and needs to be thrown out.
Okay.
Yesterday he got out my daughter's keyboard and started playing it. Played songs that I didn't even know he could play. This is very interesting. We've had people speaking languages.
Yes, that we weren't aware they could speak.
My daughter wanted to join in with him and play something too. As soon as she tried, my husband unplugged the keyboard and asked me to put it away, leaving my little girl feeling bewildered, almost hurt. It broke my heart. The unexpected is what scares me so much, not knowing how he will be tomorrow, next week, next month.
That's interesting. It's interesting because of the aggression's the wrong word, but the temper that seems present with that. That's I mean, that happens because you can have whole personality flips, but it's very, very challenging to manage because, as she's pointed out, it's completely unpredictable. Mm-hmm. You don't know what's going to trigger, you don't know what's going to calm. The advice that on the surface of things would be make sure there are things he can fiddle with to fix. There's no harm leaving like a broken keyboard. I know it's not the keyboard, but somewhere which then he hopefully...
which might need rewiring.
Yeah, that he can pick up to fix, assuming he's capable of actually fixing these things, and that's not going to cause more trouble. It's really hard to make suggestions for progressive planning when I don't know how old anybody is, because you're not quite sure what's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, things obviously accelerate at different rates anyway. And we go back to the first point of medication that might halt in its tracks. You don't know what steps have already been taken.
Because depending on how severe that is, really, really sadly, that might not be appropriate to hold the family unit together like you would with somebody with grown children.
Yeah.
Or not in the same household. That's happened probably only twice before in our...
Your experience.
Yeah. But it does happen, and one instant it was manageable, but it was difficult. There were stair gates and all sorts put in place for Dad, and the other time it wasn't. And Dad had to be placed into a care home where he was going to cause less harm, should we say, to people who were also vulnerable, because obviously anybody under the age of 18 in a household, certainly in the UK, also classes as a vulnerable adult, potentially in some sort of bracketing. So they get their own... protection, that might be the wrong word, but there's also other things you have to do to consider them, is my point. We currently have clients that live with children, and there's two completely different sets of rules, social teams and things. So that one, which is obviously would be the most useful thing I could offer support on, I can't. It's really hard when she's saying kids, if they're babies or not.
And then what about her generally in terms of unpredictable behaviour?
Well...
because in any situation that's challenging.
Yeah, and it's unbeatable because the problem is you can face something. When you face it, you can tackle it in the best way you can tackle it, but the next layer is unpredictable. So if you're having an argument with somebody, you can normally, well, not normally, it always happens. There's body language, there's sound, there's pitch of voice, there's all those other things which indicate what's happening next when someone's getting more angry, when someone's calming down. The problem with temper and uncontrollable temper in dementia is even... the normal regulators don't necessarily line up. So you might feel somebody's calming down and they're not actually. You know, the brain doesn't catch up, doesn't display the same behaviours. So honest advice, guessing, like filling in pieces there, would be that probably husband's not suitable to stay at home. brutal reality. But there's 2 other people, 2 children potentially, and a wife that could be at risk from unpredictable behaviours. But that's a really severe response, I appreciate. But
gut reaction.
Without knowing any more information and assuming they're little kids.
Or the formal diagnosis, like say, dementia being an umbrella.
Yeah, and it's like, well, what? If it's Korsakoff's, obviously that includes alcohol abuse. So it's like, and normally with Korsakoff's, you get aggressive behaviours. It depends if it's linking to something else. Saying about falls, it could be linked to Lewy bodies. There's not quite enough information about the actual
case.
Yeah, to be able to advise, because one thing can link to another.
Yeah.
That's the issue. So sorry, I'm going to come short on that one.
That's fine. One more thing on that one.
Sorry.
So, songs that they didn't know he could play.
That's amazing.
Exceptional abilities or surprising abilities with brain functions and dementia and things such as that.
But things such as that normally come with like trauma to the brain, not progressive decline.
Yeah, like there was a guy in a car crash who then knows what weather it was every day of the year for the last 100 years.
That's usually different. The songs that he knows that they didn't know, if this is just, I say, your classic dementia, I mean that respectfully, then that's likely from it's long-term memory.
Memory bank,
memory bank. So that's come from someplace else. As you know, we've had clients who wake up and speak a different language.
Yeah, stop speaking English and revert to
whatever it is that they were actually born with. So lots of strange things can happen, but unless there's trauma involved, and not in every case because it can happen, but it's much more likely that that's stored memory.
Yeah,
would be my opinion.
Yeah, rather than just an ability to play the piano.
But like I say, there could be some other trauma. I don't know. He sounds young to have dementia.
But then also young, unsteady on his feet.
Yeah. That could be linking to other things. That's what I mean. There's not enough information.
Sign that one off?
I would, because you don't want to say the wrong thing without knowing what's what.
Finally.
Yes.
Comment 6.
Okay.
My mum is only 67 and was just diagnosed with moderate dementia on August the 4th, 2023.
Right.
I say moderates, I'm assuming they're obviously signs leading
it's not
to
early
that memory
stage,
clinic.
basically, yeah.
I have had to make a lot of decisions, choices and changes very rapidly. And though my mum prepared an estate plan and has accepted her diagnosis, there's so much that is still up in the air. I'm trying to be strong for her, but I feel like I'm just in a state of waiting for shit to go down, as opposed to living and enjoying life.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean is I'm perpetually anxious and can't relax now that dementia is a reality in her life. I know that means she won't be able to take care of stuff like she used to, so now it's on me. I should really read these before and I could read it smoothly. Biggest concerns: timing. When will things get worse? And how long will they still be them? So how long will she still be her mum?
Okay.
Money. How do I pay for their care when nursing facilities are so expensive? We don't know where this is, obviously. She's open to touring facilities and knows that she will... She's very open. Mm-hmm. And knows that she will likely wind up in one. She doesn't want me and my husband to move in and take care of her, even though we offered. Very brave of you.
Women are much more accepting, so she won't want to be a burden, hence why she's open to looking at places to go into.
Cool.
Just saying.
I'm worried about not having enough to pay for her because who knows how long she'll be there, how long she'll live. People have languished in hospice care for years at a point in their life when they are 100% dependent on the care of others. Personal stuff: how do I handle their affairs while I'm working full-time, paying their bills, selling their car, house, etc.? Will she forget that she's not supposed to drive, get in her car and get in an accident? What do I do then? Mental health: how do I keep my loved one engaged for as long as possible if they can no longer drive/live independently? Fears: will I get it too? I hate this disease, as if cancer wasn't bad enough for the human race, we have to deal with our loved ones losing their sense of self to a disease we can barely understand and stop. Where do you want to start? Do you want me to run through the points?
I would just let's go through the points.
Timing: when will things get worse? How long will they still be them?
Not what she wants to hear, but not a clue. It depends. So it depends on how it basically progresses. Interestingly, we should maybe put some more specific questions on, because is this person already open to sort of memory support? Are they on medication? Because back to one of the first questions, is some medications that are leading on the market today I've got really strong evidence that it stops progression in its tracks. It cannot undo what's already been done, and it can't revert it, and it can't stop it indefinitely, but it reduces that progression dramatically. So early stages, mid stages, however it wants to be phrased, there needs to be medication there.
Pharmaceutical review.
Yeah, and you know I'm not big on that kind of shit, but
certain things.
Certain things it's necessary. But that would be the first port of call. It sounds patronising, but she's so young, it would be the best thing to do. Also, making sure she actually takes that medication at the same time every day. So the irony in dementia medication is it needs to be taken at the same time of the day, each day, for it to reach its maximum efficiency.
That's where a care plan comes in handy.
Yeah,
or in the very early stages, obviously a friend of ours, mother lives down south of England, he lives up north, and they've got the little thing where they pop up on the screen and say, have you taken your meds, Mum? Hi, how are you?
Yeah, take your tablets. You can get the dementia clocks, which literally talk to you and say it's now 4 o'clock. You've got a tablet to take. But there's loads and loads and loads of stuff, and it doesn't have to be carers coming into the house, but research that, get her some meds, and make sure she's taking them at the right time.
So with any luck, it won't rapidly progress?
No, I mean, if it's managed well and if things can stay active, stimulation's a really, really good one, because that's one of the things that you often see declining quite rapidly is people sort of forget what they're doing. So they might sit down, as you would, what the bloody hell was I doing? And then the next thought is, what the bloody hell was I doing? And they just stay sat. So it's having things to engage them in, which does link to another question, I'm not sure which one it was, but how to keep somebody active. Again, depending on where in the world this person is, certainly in the UK, there are quite a lot of groups which people can go to, again, depending on whereabouts you live. More rural, there's more challenges, but in busier places, there's tons of clubs people can go and sit and engage in. And just minimal social input and stimulation is really, really, really helpful. It also helps somebody pattern. So dementia is very, very tricky for all the obvious reasons, but it's like having a toddler in some ways. The child has no idea what time of day it is, but you know it's nighttime, it's midnight, you're knackered. You can sort of train is the wrong word, but you can develop a routine where that baby recognises, oh, it's bedtime, without understanding anything about bedtime. It's the same thing. So medication at the same time, getting up roughly at the same time, as you would do in a functional life. Activity clubs, it's every Wednesday. It's Wednesday, Mum, we go down to the knit and chat. Oh, okay, patterns.
So activities, support, medication, looking to things like dementia clocks or other technologies
or the
might
tech,
help.
yeah.
Prompt her, keep her at home, independent.
100%. And obviously carers can come to that. So actual people, not just robots and noisy like machines.
Yeah. A care package.
Yeah, just somebody to come in once a day to have a chat. And literally, how many clients do we have who you go in to have a chat, because that social stimulation is more important than anything. You also make sure they drink a hot cup of tea and they take those tablets at the same time.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. In terms of staying them though, the other side of it is they might not necessarily remember everything short term, but you would hope that
yes, they do
maintain their personality in terms of
most
joking, or at least for a period of time. So even then, when it progresses to maybe another stage, that you can still talk about things in the past, still be herself, just not a present self.
The past is the person's best friend. Now that's good and bad because it depends on that person's past. So it's if you can take them back to
remember that woman who constantly tortured her husband because he cheated. Brought it
awkward constantly, and it is amusing, but what a turmoil to be in. Like every day of your life, you just found out your husband.
If they've worked, as I said, they've worked through it for the past 30 years and never mentioned it again. She's then got to live that hell, and then he's got to be reminded of it.
I'm going to keep my mouth shut because, karma's a real deal. Karma's a bitch. But keeping themselves so they're being themselves, again, there's no definite answer. But not sort of over-forcing that. Is, sadly, you just have to let nature take its course. But again, conversations about olden days, olden times, previous experiences, places, the positive ones only. And if any of them don't get recognised the first time, don't think, well, there's no point going back to the duck pond. Because she had no idea what the duck pond was. She'll know the third, the fourth, the fifth
Collusion, run with it.
100%, yeah.
Recognise a new them, maybe even a them you didn't know.
Yeah, because the thing about them is, who's the them important to? Is it important to mum? Or is it important to the daughter? It's important to the daughter. Mum, if she's happily progressing in her dementia, will be really quite happy just ticking along with whatever reality she's faced with at that moment. It's the people that are involved in that person's life where it's much more a huge issue. So my advice was, them being them, is get the absolute most out of it while you can, and do the things with mum that you enjoy doing together. So it just builds on those memories.
Okay. Paying for care. Nursing facilities are expensive. She wants to go look around and doesn't want to live with them.
Yeah, so again, it depends on assets and stuff, and it depends on the country. So if you're in the UK, your assets are fucked, they're taken if you go into a care facility. So that's not to say not to do it, but you need to be prepared that it is a money pit and you have to use all your own money to pay for that care home. If there is no money, then there is some government funding, but with the government funding comes lack of choice about where the care home is for obvious reasons. So if you're in the fortunate position that she's a homeowner, she owns a car, she's got some sort of pension, access to funds, it's not how she dreamt about spending it, I imagine, but it would mean that she'd be able to pick a facility where she'd be.
There's no way out of it.
There's no way out of it. Obviously that's only the UK, I'm not sure about anywhere else, but it's timing as well. It's maximising the money. So to me, money, which living with me, which you hate about me, money is value. It's not really about the money being a physical thing. So it's like, well, it would actually be best to start spending that 5 years before we need to, because then she'll be settled and she'll be so established in that care facility and it's exactly where she wants to be. So we're going to go tomorrow, even though she doesn't need to go. Or it'll be, well, actually this isn't going to be her ideal. We're going to put everything we possibly can in home first and then swap. Obviously home care is cheaper than home care. And there's lots of cheap ways around it. And
in the UK, they don't take the house into account for staying.
They don't. So if you stay at home, the assets, the home as an asset remains yours. It doesn't come into your means-tested financial assessment. So there is that advantage.
So it might be that a wraparound package, depending on the progression, depending on the medication and what's actually needed, that the wraparound care can fit into wherever it's said about, having a family working full time, because definitely. You can check in at X, Y, and Z.
If she had 2 calls a day from a community care company with consistency and maybe 2 companionship sits a week, so they take her out to a club or they take her to the garden centre, they take her to the cafe, wherever she would enjoy going, and it's regular and it's repetitive and it's a pattern, then that would tick off probably all the first 2 or 3 points.
So in terms of paying, it's difficult to know because, like I said, she's only 67. Her physical health is likely to be absolutely fine. Yeah. It's just going to be mental decline. I know once someone said they died of dementia, but usually people die with dementia, not necessarily of dementia.
Yeah.
They just need to look at the options in the region. If it's the UK, speak to a social work team.
If it's the UK and if somebody manages to stay at home until they become really quite unwell, they are open to full funding at home as well, under NHS funding basically, because it gets assessed differently. So the best thing financially is to remain at home if you're home at 100%, because other funding becomes available to you. Once you go through that care home door, you're done financially.
Personal stuff. How do I handle affairs while I'm working full-time, paying bills? Selling the car, house. Will she forget that she's not supposed to drive? Yes.
Direct debits. So cancel anything that she doesn't need to be regular. Set everything else up so it comes out automatically.
Get financial power of attorney. Medical power of attorney.
Yeah, 100%. Car, as explained earlier, I would just remove it. It's normally the best thing to do, out of sight, out of mind. And again...
Unless she's well enough to drive, but...
Yeah, it's if she is. I mean, assuming she's still licensed at 67, you don't get reviewed for your...
I don't know.
Is it like 75?
In the UK.
In the UK. Anyway, that would be... Depends. Without sitting and having a conversation with her and having a look around the house, I won't be able to tell you whether it'd be sensible or not. But
fancy a chat, get in touch.
But get rid of it if there's any concerns that actually she's not going to be safe in that vehicle, or when there's worries about her.
Yeah. Better safe than sorry.
Yeah, definitely.
On all fronts. But yeah, just have to kind of lots of work in the beginning to sort out the affairs, direct debits, bills, and all that jazz.
Yeah,
and then
there's a big sort of uphill.
Yeah, more minimum admin moving forward.
We're talking about selling the house and stuff that are going to be in preparation for getting into a care facility, so you might be able to dodge that one by keeping her at home.
Yeah. Mental health. How do I keep my loved one engaged for as long as possible if they can no longer drive, live independently?
So again, it does come back to the care support. So it sounds terrible because that's what we do, but it's genuinely the right thing for independence. So regular carers coming in, regular times of the day, regular social activities.
Groups.
If there's not groups available, obviously some areas we cover, there's nothing for hundreds of miles. So the group is the carer. So the carer turns up and we might have, I don't know, bags of knitting, artwork, something. There might be a piano in the lady's house. It's like, come on, it's music time today, whatever. Bring those activities to the person if the person can't get to those activities. It's not as exciting on a one-to-one necessarily rather than going to a group. That depends on people's personalities. Yeah. We've had lots of people who prefer the one-to-one.
Experiences of life will always be diminished as they get older, and that is just the sad reality. So
yes,
all those things plus visit, invite for lunch, grandchildren,
regular things, regular days, regular times, regular things, patterns. And there's probably not any science to back me up, but my experience is absolutely 100% right. The better the pattern, the better chance of acceptance. It's not declining the progression, but calm.
We should get it too. We've already touched that in terms of studies, and
I'm not sold that it's a hereditary thing. There'll be lots of people that disagree with that.
Head injuries, lifestyle, health, physical health.
There's 100 different
mental
things.
Health.
I mean, lots of the dementias are actually linked to Parkinson's, vascular issues, which could be blood pressure, it could be heart problems, it could be fluid retention problems. It's not just down to one thing. Alcohol misuse definitely impacts dementia. It's the cause of Korsakoff's form of dementia, or very strongly linked to. So it really depends on someone's lifestyle, on the chance of what's what, and the lack of brain activity is a big thing, and we're going to see that loads more because lots of people have been very successful very early on, and it's like, oh right, to the yacht, to the golf course, to the whatever.
Well, there's also the other the other end of
that's not funny.
I've nudged it.
Yeah, no, didn't you realise? Hence why I leant towards it.
The other end of that spectrum, obviously, though, higher levels, especially after COVID, even before really, of people who aren't working and aren't keeping their mind active and doing certain things. So higher levels for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And again, to each their own, but there's certain methods where I think definitely the teeth flossing thing's a thing. There'll be lots of other things that we'll realise it goes without saying, and it's not for debate, but processed food, alcohol misuse, substance misuse. What do you think it does to your brain activity? Again, these are my opinions. Obviously, there's lots of science to back it up, but there are no recreational drugs that are, drugs. There's plenty of recreational drugs, I'm sure, that are good for the mind, but there's no recreational drugs that have a positive impact on brain function. There just isn't.
So try not to worry about getting it now.
My personal opinion would be it would be unlikely, but it depends on your lifestyle. The hereditary thing, for me, the jury's out, is my point. Lifestyle things, not necessarily out.
I think that's it. Unless there's anything else in there that you want to...
No, but I'm really interested to find out maybe what they're planning on doing, where this person is in the world. Like if they're UK, there's probably some more advice we can give for that. There's plenty of time to make a difference there.
Okay. That's it.
You missed one. She said about how mum didn't want to move in with her and her husband. Didn't
I said that here.
Oh, did you?
I don't know where.
But that,
even though we've offered, that was in the money, how to pay for the facility. She doesn't want to move in with them.
One thing I wanted to touch on that bit is that sensible, because
that she didn't. Sensible that she doesn't.
In a way, again, it depends on your family dynamic, but that's going to change things forever.
Yeah, change things in the marriage. It'll change things between her and her daughter.
Yeah.
It's, as we said when second point of episode 1, in that the care home wasn't her mum's environment, pictures on the walls, etc.
Yeah, it changes things.
Maybe she knows your house like the back of her hand, but generally it's not the family home that she kind of raised her family in.
I mean, it works for some people.
Yeah.
But I will always be the advocate for person's own home.
It's like Billy Elliot, where the nan's obviously wandering the moors of Northumberland or wherever it is.
Yeah, because but it's whatever you need to do as well. There isn't a right and a wrong answer with any of these things.
Yeah.
And all of it's completely unpredictable. But own home would be the best place for everybody, in my opinion, for as long as that's safe and sustainable.
Thus ends episode 2.
Very interesting questions. I like it.
Yeah.
I'll pay attention to what Reddit actually means now. As a forum, or what? Is it a forum?
I don't know what a forum is. Yeah, call it a forum. You probably
chat place.
I just call it a global community message board.
Sounds intense.
Forum sounds better.
Okay, anyway.
Well
thank
done.
you to everybody. Thank you. That's strange. Okay.